Welcome. It's today in EVE Online, November 19th, 2019. I am Matterall. We're going to go over the day's news. I have one guest in here with me. That is Orion. How you doing, Orion? Whoops. I hit the... There. Yeah, you can hear me, right? Okay. I assume he took off, but we have just a few things going on today. I was looking at the forums and Reddit and other sources, and it looks like what's very interesting is, first off, bots being banned in high-sec conduits. Now, conduits are someplace where you can make quite a bit of money. I believe it's like 90 million per hour. If you're good at it, if you optimize, et cetera, et cetera. Most people won't make that much, but that's a lot. And so to do that while you're away from the keyboard, AFK, just seems like a good idea if you can do it. Why? Because you can make money while you're away working or sleeping. And that is unfair to all the other players that actually play the game. So it's seen as a bad thing. Well, there's this new technology that CCP is using. They talked about it at eVegas. You can see that in the data and bots speech that was made by CCP Larrikin. He talks about the Sentinel program that basically is mapping out behavior and looking at it, and it uses some artificial intelligence to see if people are doing things that are like not humanly possible. But it works in conjunction with reporting by actual players. So somebody reports that they actually reported a group of Gilas, which are cruisers that use drones, which makes it easy for AFK because you don't have to target anything. You release the drones. The drones take care of destroy the things that are in your area because they auto aggro the things that are attacking you. So those Gilas were being used in conduits, and within 24 hours, those Gilas were banned. And the player knows this and reported it because CCP is also now sending you an email saying, thanks, we banned those people that you reported, which I think was a really neat follow-up that CCP did as a process. So now if you report somebody, you will get an email saying, you remember that person you reported, they got banned. So thank you for your work. And that is something that psychologically helps you feel like you didn't just throw that comment into the wind, that somebody was actually listening to you, and hey, it actually worked, and hey, you did a good thing because you actually found somebody that deserved being banned. Okay, other news. This is on the... Actually, let me see if I can't turn that up. One second, I'm going to be quiet here while I make some adjustments so you guys can see some of the stuff I'm talking about. Almost ready here. All right, are you there? Oh, are you on a phone?
I shouldn't be, no.
Oh, yeah, you got squelched. Yikes. Sound all right now. Okay, welcome. What's that?
I said probably because the stream up in two places.
Okay. All right, everybody, morning. I would start over for the people that just arrived, but we're going to do these at 8 o'clock or 8:30 every morning, so try to show up on time. I'm going to try to start on time, and if I can't, I'll let you guys know. So just make it a routine, like I do, and or you can catch this as a podcast, which I'll explain a bit later. Okay, it's today in EVE Online. It is November 19th, 2019. We're getting closer to Thanksgiving and then Christmas for the US players. Those are sometimes quiet times for EVE Online. I used to think that there'd be a lot of people playing EVE Online through vacations in the winter. And it turns out, nope, people spend time with families, and that is a good thing. All right, so as I was saying, we have a few pieces of news that we were going to go through. HTP, which is Honorable Third Party. These are a drop Black Ops group that is particularly lethal. And they used to really wreak havoc in Providence and also wreak havoc in, at one point in, I think it was Vale, where SMA was, Space Monkeys Alliance. They really softened them up before 2016's World War B or Casino War. So HTP, but again, usually they're in Providence, just wiping people out down there. It looks like they actually ventured into Catch and found some botters, so they called some attention to those, saying, "Hey, Legacy, these are not the kind of groups you want to rent to, because they are botting." And so they showed their evidence for it and talked about their behavior and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a, shame on you for allowing that to happen in your territory. You actually remember CCP said, and by CCP I mean CCP Berger, who's one of the executive producers types, that alliances that rent space to botters will also be held accountable. Now, we don't know what that means, but players said, well, how are we supposed to know? We don't have the tools to tell us that somebody's actually botting. I don't think there was an answer to that, because Berger made his announcements from the stage, and the players made their rebuttal through forums and that kind of stuff. So we haven't got an answer for that. But it is interesting if they do punish in some way the people who rent out territory in the game for ISK, that if they're not penalized in one way or another for doing it, for not policing it and making sure that people aren't botting. I think maybe what they meant was that we will take money away from you. So, so if people pay you a bunch of rent, we're going to confiscate all that money. So it won't be worth renting to them, because it'll make your budgets unstable. Like, you'll think you have 100 million that you collected from a renter. That renter turns out to be a bot and is banned, and CCP claws back that 100 billion, let's say. And your budget just evaporated, and that is unstable. So anyway, be interesting to see how that goes. Another thing is, there's a few rumors that turned out to be false. Actually, I'm glad you're here, Ryan, because we can talk about this. But you actually are familiar with Pitts, right? FC Pitts that left the Imperium recently.
We've spoken a few times. He was on Mind Clash, the Discord a lot, and we spoke a bit.
Yeah. Well, you pointed it out. I looked into it and I thought, oh yeah, it's a very interesting story. It works on multiple levels, right? There's the FC that did a dread bomb that didn't go over very well, lost 300 billion. Did that get him in trouble? Turns out no. He was somebody that wasn't what was speaking up against, from the point of view of an FC, speaking up against diplomatics that make his job harder because he's not able to do things, or it's ambiguous. So that was interesting. But it also worked on a different level of content creators that want to go out and do things and keep the players engaged, being suppressed by people who play the diplomatic game or the empire game, where they say we need to keep certain relationships to keep our safety, so don't threaten those relationships. In other words, don't have fun in this game in that way until we tell you to go to war. It seems very classist, right? Like, we tell you when to go to war, when you can have fun. I know you pay for the game and everything, but if you want to be part of our group, you do what we say. As opposed to an FC who's like, why should we not attack these people? They're neutral to us on paper. So let's have some fun. Let's do some meaningful things. Let's destroy some big objects, not just these small little things. And I think that's what the narrative of the Pitts departure is.
Yeah, I think it was just looking for a way to get rid of him. Maybe I don't. It just seems odd. I mean, even PGL, I don't know what levels PGL has pull and test. Like, he was like, keep doing what you're doing. He even said that in the Reddit post. So
Oh, I
I
thought
don't. I
that
don't.
was. That was really funny. Explain that a little bit. PGL is Pro God Legend. He's an FC for Test Alliance. That is the alliance that the Fortizar, the structure, was in, and that is the alliance that had the ally that was attacked, which is Fire Coalition. So tell me what Pro God said.
Yeah, I got to pull it up again, but basically he was like, "Our Diplos won't care," is what he amounted it to. Is
Yeah.
like, keep doing what you're doing.
I thought he meant Diplos in general won't care, which I thought was kind of funny because that's clearly not what happened. The Diplos did care. The Diplos probably got him thrown out. Well, I don't know if they got him thrown out, but
Unless Test threw a big fit and there's some disconnect between PGL and what the Test Diplos like, I would imagine his voice carries weight to it. So I don't. Again, it could be one of those things where FCs just don't see the same level as the Diplos.
yeah,
Because FCs work on different levels. You know, we FCs talk to one another. Even enemy FCs talk to one another all the time. But you know, if I want information or I want something going down, I don't talk to a Diplo. I talk to an FC.
right. Well, I thought it was interesting because so there was this dread bomb. It happened. It didn't go well. But then in that Reddit thread, Pro God Legend from Test, who's one of the leaders there, says, "Hey man, don't worry about it. You know, we're not going to complain. It's not a problem for us." That's what Test said. And then a few weeks later, he gets the FC that he's saying, like, don't worry about it. Pitts gets thrown out of the Imperium. I think he got thrown out because you're right. They probably wanted him out, but the players didn't want him out. It was the leadership that wanted him out. And probably because he was kind of his own voice. Like he wasn't in line with the other voices about what's up, what's down. Something like that.
Yeah, and the average line member isn't gonna want him out until the ones that are having their freedoms impinged on, like if they're suddenly their ratting space becomes less friendly to them and stuff like that. The average line member won't care because the guys who are going on these fleets are the active guys who want to go out and do things, not sit back and rat all the time.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's interesting. So you have his departure, and the reason I brought it up again is because it seemed to resonate with other people. And so you saw something that was in the works anyway, Paxton leave from Imperium or Goon Swarm. And then you had this joke that was, wildly inappropriate is unwydotting and moving north to join Kendar. And that turned out, I think, to be a joke. So the reason that's important is because Y dot is known for Y dot is not a thing. It's Y dot is an action that you take when you merge into a bigger alliance or you get absorbed by the bigger alliance. And so Wildly Inappropriate was a pretty good alliance back in 2010, 2011. And its leadership got tired of running the show, so they took off and said, you know what, we don't want to run this anymore. We're taking off, but instead of just leaving you guys to die, we're going to merge you into Goon Swarm. And so from the outside, it looked like Goon Swarm had said, these leaders are taking off, so we're going to go ahead and incorporate you into our group. But from the inside, from the Imperium side, it was more of a responsible thing to do since the leaders were taking off. But Y dot basically means to be absorbed by the bigger entity. And so for this to come up as a joke saying they're going to un-Y dot, which means that they're going to actually take that corporation, come out of, or the players that were in Wildly Inappropriate are going to come out, start their alliance Wildly Inappropriate again and move north. Well, that's just a joke. That's not happening. But that's also part of counter narrative psychological warfare in the game. So look for that. If you're getting hammered with a certain narrative, you throw out a lot of flack, like a lot of false narratives, so that people who are like, yeah, they get caught on they get basically suckered into cheering for something that's a joke. And that kind of makes them feel dumb. And so it becomes risky then to endorse behavior. And that's a psychological defensive maneuver, which you're starting to see. And that tells me as an analyst that some of the stuff's starting to have an effect, at least on some of the players. So they're starting to feel some of that pressure. Doesn't mean anything's going to happen, but I think you can just see behavioral patterns by the way that people socialize. So that is interesting. And also you saw Rote Capel do the same thing, but that's clearly a joke because a few weeks ago, there was a joke rumor that Rote Capel was falling into Goon Swarm or the Imperium. And that was a joke. They never did that. But what they're saying now, and this is a new joke, is that, hey, we're leaving the Imperium and we're going up to work with Trigger Happy. That's Kendar's group where a lot of these groups are going, or at least a few of them. So there's kind of like, we're in a little culture of something that Pitts kind of is a big symbol of.
I put it in chat there. Brotherhood of Spacers had left Test and started their lines back up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not blue with Test when they left. It was an amicable leave.
This Dalekar, you are from Test?
That is correct. I'm not really that high up or anything like that. I just more of a line member who does stuff every now and then. But the guys who left were part of a important corporation in Test, I would say. Very active, and they decided they have sort of a corp culture of going on what they like to call adventures, and I think they decided it was time. And so, although it wasn't a bad leave or anything like that, there was nothing that I was aware of that was drama related. They just decided, you know what, there's content to be had in the north, and so they decided to pick up their stuff and go.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to allude that there was any drama behind it. I just noticed that they had left. I've interacted with Boss a bit here and there. They're good. They're good folks.
But that's an encouraging sign overall. I think if you're looking for diversity in the landscape of sovereignty holders, you want smaller alliances. There may be a possibility for more activity, better activity for people who like a medium or small kind of fleet, as opposed to the 500 that everybody shows up to. So if you start getting diversity in groups, you will get more diplomatic accords that'll be more complex instead of three major groups, all who are blue to each other. I think that's why people are looking at this with interest. Blue again means that they're allies, therefore they're not actually going to fight, which is what we're seeing here in the South, right? With the Imperium, with Legacy, and now with Fire Coalition. They are all not really willing to displace one another or fight with any real interest in changing the map. I must say too, there was somebody wrote me that the H-Tech Y Fortizar, which was at the center of this story with Pitts, the Fortizar that the attacks came from, that was put there to defend Stain when Test had just moved down, I believe in 2000, either 17 or 18. They'd just moved down to the catch area and they were looking for a new home. They'd been kicked out of the north. This is all in the aftermath of World War B, Casino War. There's a big group, takes on Imperium and displaces them, and they go south and hang out in Delve, right? And then you have these groups that all kind of settle because the war's over and they don't know what to do. So CO2 and NC Dot start fighting, and Test is friends with CO2. So both Test and CO2 get kicked out of the north, and they end up going south to try to find a home. And it was a real question at that time. Well, Goons are down there, the Imperium's down there, and they're a lot smaller than they were before because they lost a lot of members when they were kicked out of the north. And here comes Test. Is there going to be a revenge war? And Test is saying, we want to find a home and we want to build super capitals. That was their goal. So they end up landing in Catch, and they kick out all these little groups at the time. But right next to Catch is Stain, and Stain is there, and they're Russians, and they don't like groups that settle there. They attack them. And Stain is mostly a Russian group, and they're allied with the Imperium. So the Imperium says, yeah, Stain, we'll help you. We'll help you fight that war against Test. And so they put down that Fortizar at that time. I believe this is what I was told. And so that makes it kind of a sore point because it's been there a long time. It was there to thwart Test Alliance at the time. And Test doesn't necessarily like it there, but Test isn't strong enough to insist that it be moved. So it is a diplomatic problem
I can
that
help
thing is there.
clarify that
Yeah,
if you
can
want.
you?
So I don't know the very specifics of the diplomatic agreement, but there is an understanding, which is I guess a fancy way that diplomats say a gray area that is monitored between Test and Goons, and that Fortizar is a part of a predetermined agreement with us living in the South. Again, I can't speak to the specifics of like which Fortizars or if there's more to that agreement, but one of the things that sort of helps balance the awkwardness of us being relatively galactically close to each other is these little details that were agreed upon. I'm not sure if it was before we started taking the space or after it looked like, okay, Stainco is getting kicked out. Time to sit down at the table with the new people who will be living there. But that's sort of like it's one of those like it's a relic of the past kind of agreement
Yeah.
where there's always that chance that the the feeling could change, the mood could change, but in reality, without sitting down with a test diplo and a goon, or rather a Imperium diplo, it wouldn't be very easy to tell whether or not there would be the ability to renegotiate or potentially be like, okay, well here we are, the political landscape has changed. Can we do something about this? Because some people in test don't like that the fort's there. It's actually there's a ongoing discussion by line members currently on the forums internal test forums about hey, how come they have a fort here? It can hit like everything that's important they can stage out of there. And so when Pitts did what he did, I don't necessarily think that test specifically or legacy specifically put the pressure on Goonswarm. Again, I don't know, I'm not a diplomat, but from what has been said, it sounds like Goons took it into their own hands and went, okay, although this was cool and fun and yeah, we all had a good time, it sets a precedent that maybe they don't want to set right now.
And this is Esoteria, right?
I believe so. I
Yeah,
have to
H
check.
tac Y. Yeah. And it can hit all of Esoteria, unless I'm confused, but H tac Y, that's the only thing that comes up. Unless it's HY tac, which I don't think it is. Oh yeah, HY tac. That's it. Sorry. So this H tac Y is actually a different place. It can hit all of Esoteria, which is also their territory. But let's look at the jump range. This is jump range for super capitals, so that would be the most dangerous. And for that, you can see it hits. This is all of Catch here. I think we can go back to this other view. Systems. How do I
The
get back to
important part about that fort also is like legacy space. Esoteria definitely is one thing, but in terms of this sort of dread bomb content or capital usage, it would be a different thing in impasse, or should they choose to go to MNC with it, right? It's as a jumping off point. Esoteria is a target, sure, but if I was sitting there in Pitts' seat, I would be like, where can I go that gives tests the most amount of mids and delays their response, and that's sort of why this sort of edge of the space territory forts can really present. A big deal as they allow you to attempt to maneuver around the super capital forces.
Yeah, actually, it is H tac Y. Sorry, it's HY tac dot RWO. That's in the center of Catch. I don't know if somebody could Yeah, it is. It's HTAC-Y. So this is the one we're talking about. You're looking at here in the black circles. And for those who can't see it, it is really like a big chunk of olive catch. So inside the middle of legacy space is Goon Swarm, Fortizar that allows them to hit just about any place on there. And if you're using dread bombs out of there, and Test is weary of having that in there, but they have to let it exist anyway, then somebody aggravating the situation is not good for the diplomatic stability. So even though on paper Pitts has the right to launch attacks out of there, it does look like it is really problematic for Test. Like really problematic. And it seems like that isn't something that is something that they didn't really want to be exacerbated, because why call attention to it? I also think there was a time, I think it was one of the battles, might have been X-47 or 9GC. It was a 2018 battle where there was 4 or 5 major battles, and we had live coverage on it that I was doing at the time for INN. We had Aerith come on, and I think actually it was 9TAC4. It was the aftermath of 9TAC4. And Aerith really challenged Villy when Villy showed up on the comms, saying, "Hey, we saw that you took advantage and put down a Fortizar," and he was basically saying, "Well, we're going to have to talk about that Fortizar." So Villy kind of cooled the situation off, and then something happened afterwards. Probably they removed it or did something. But the point is, it looked at the time that Goon Swarm was really putting a lot of pressure on Test. And you can see now that Goon Swarm is inside of Test territory. And of course, they're allies, so it's not that big a deal. But are they allies? I don't know. This is a very complicated situation. And I'm sure Test would like to get out from under it because you want your sovereignty to be whole. But
It's a giant fear thing. They're afraid if one goes against the other, everyone else will pile on to the other group, because everyone has grudges against both groups now. So it's a matter of they're worried about who pulls the trigger first, who will get the help. So it's a mutual agreement, so that way they don't both end up with the other block hopping in on their side.
Yeah, and also you have Villy, who's former part of Goon Swarm. So there are some old ties there, but who knows how strong those are. I think he's definitely his own leader now in Test. At least his identity is formed over there. But there is some history there between the two groups. There always has been, right? Like Test kind of grew out of an area that Goon Swarm was protecting. I keep going back between Goon Swarm and Imperium. And the reason is Imperium is relatively new, like 3 or 4 years old. Goon Swarm goes back to 2005. So it's just easier. I have to keep using both just so people have references. The Goon Swarm is the major alliance in the Imperium, but the Imperium means that there's a couple other alliances in there as well, like the Bastion and TNT and the Initiative, which maybe we can talk about later. But so Villy and Goon Swarm or the Imperium have some history together, and they're the ones that I think have worked out this deal, because Pro-God Legend actually comes from a group called Nulli Segunda that was essentially destroyed by a contract from Goon Swarm, the Imperium. They put a contract out on Nulli Segunda, and essentially the contract was taken by Pandemic Legion, and Pandemic Legion put so much pressure on Nulli Segunda that they eventually died. So you have Pandemic Legion killing Nulli Segunda, Pro-God Legends group, and at the same time, you have Pandemic Legion also being the spoiler to Test, in that they helped Winter Coalition in their war against Test Alliance, and then they fought over Providence. PL lost. And then Test and Pandemic Legion, there was a third thing. Well, they don't like each other. What's that?
The Jinen, there was a thing where we took a bunch of dreads north and it didn't go out well.
Okay.
That was like the last interaction before the second fraternity war, or Winter Coalition. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, like long ago, Test and Pandemic Legion were actually allies in the same coalition, but that was a long time ago. They also fought together more recently in the World War B Casino War. But after that, PL and Test have not gotten along. And yeah, as a Pro God Legend and PL also have some grudges there. Now, they all like each other or whatever, but there's definitely some grudges. So Pandemic Legion really screwed up when they attacked Test because they essentially pushed Test into the bosom of the Imperium. And in doing so, created the Imperial Legacy Super Coalition. And that is the one that basically in 2018 was able to defeat the North and maintain the South. So, huge mistake by PL at that time. And we're still seeing politics from that era. So the Imperial Legacy, then after these wars ended, supposedly broke apart. But as you can see, there are still Goon Swarm presence inside a Test, and you still have neutral but non-invasion pact stuff. And so that's what's going on there.
If I might pull back the veil real quick,
Yeah.
in terms of just like how line members in Test see it, which I guess is, I have to clarify, I'm like a minor FC, so I can't say that I'm a true line member. But I don't want to misrepresent my words. So from a line member perspective, and when I'm talking with the guys who we just, were hanging out on a fleet, a lot of them don't harbor a lot of that old grudge against the Imperium, which is why I like the Imperial Legacy. I feel like it wasn't impossible as a concept, because there's a bit of an understanding that at that time it just was like, okay, well, they're willing to work with us, we're willing to work with them. Even though there'll be parts of leadership, like you point out, where PGL might feel some type of way about working with them. At the end of the day, you sort of have to like read the mood in the room, right? And line members feel right now that although I would say that line members right now feel that although the Imperium have certain things like this fort that could be considered contention points, until there's something that, let's say, Legacy wants that the Imperium has, or the vice versa,
Mhm.
you're just going to continue to see these, what I guess would be properly classified as fun engagements, right? Are they fun for the guy who's getting blown up? Well, maybe not so much, but for everybody else involved, it tends to be a good time, and it goes back and forth, right? Like up until beat around the bush, sorry, there would be like a Goku fleet that would go in and mess with Init for a bit, and then the the exact opposite would happen. Panda would come and visit us for a bit, and although
Visit
maybe
means attack, by the way. But yeah.
yeah. Although it wasn't it wasn't great if you were the Rorqual miner that day, but at the end of the day, I don't think line members harbor any hatred or anything like that for the activities that have gone on for like the last 6 to 8 months, because like you pointed out, the Imperium did come and help us many times
Mhm.
in quiet ways during the Winter Co War, and so would there be a huge war between the two of us in the future? Who can say? But as of right now, there are people who would like to see us fight goons who are line members, but then the vast majority are like, if there's not a lot to gain there, that's an uphill battle. Because I mean, we're not kidding ourselves. We know, in terms of who's number one in galactic power right now, and it would be kind of like, why would we throw ourselves on our sword in that way, kind of deal.
Sure. Why would you self-destruct and weaken your ally at the same time when you have other enemies out there? Ryan, you're in Pandemic Legion, right?
I am.
Does Pandemic Legion have any kind of view about this sort of thing? Or are you guys worried about your own problems?
You cut out, Matt. You're not broadcasting anymore.
Oh, does Pandemic Legion have any insight into this, or are you guys just worried about your own problems?
I mean, there's nothing we can control about it. I mean, it's just like everyone's like, well, goons came to fight you all in up north. And I mean, it wasn't going to be a fight, so that's why we left. When you bring that many nerds to a fight, and especially with Testa would be coming right behind them, we can't control those things. So now that's why I believe headliners focusing on what we can do and trying to have a bit more fun with it.
You're talking about Tribute, where you guys couldn't really raise a defense. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's just the thing of it now. Brave I think has a deployment in January. I don't know if you can say anything on that. The guy here from Test, if Test or Legacy have a deployment in January, but it looks like things may be spinning up here in January, but I don't know to what degree.
Up in the north?
I don't know about up north, but I just know Brave has deployment coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is a schedule that Philly put out to all of us when the war was winding down, about like what are we going to do for the next 3 months and where are we going to go for the next year and that kind of thing. And as far as I'm good to say, I don't have any info actually. In terms of where we might go and who we might fight, a Brave deployment necessarily doesn't mean that Tess is going to go too. I'm sure should things get exciting where they go, obviously maybe a SIG inside Test might go there as well. But Test proper, I know right now, is just at home doing a bit of cleaning and maintenance on the Stain remnants of the Stain coalition that we kicked out. And I know that's going to be our next focus coming up here real soon. But
Yeah.
going into 2020, that's a really interesting question that a lot of line members are asking too. Like, we haven't had a significant quantity of peacetime in like 3 years. It's always been, one thing to the next. What are we gonna do? And so that's definitely on the mind of a lot of people that I interact with.
Yeah, it seems like I know that Stain was the next project, just a little bit of cleaning in Stain or something to do there. Um, but 2020 is a big question mark. I'm not sure it's decided. Maybe. I will say that this is on Reddit. You can find this TAPI, which stands for Test Alliance Please Ignore, but TAPI sounds, I don't know, effeminate, so people are using it as kind of an insult um, instead of saying test. So Test and Goons Fight Club 2K20, and these are some of the rules, I guess, that are there. No cloaky camping. Now, cloaky camping is used in order to suppress people's ability to make money. So, no suppressing the ability of Test to make money. No hitting structures means don't destroy any of their infrastructure for Test. No sov-wanding, which means don't contest any structures for Test. No killing crabs or supers. Again, no hurting their money-making ability. All capital fights to be prearranged and SRP'd so that nobody loses anything. That's Ship Replacement Program, SRP. And that just means that if you're going to get into a big fight, make sure that they know it's not an aggressive fight, and then replace those ships that you destroy per team, because Test can replace what they lose, and Goon Swarm would replace what they lose. Weekly brawls, that's an encouraging sign, meaning go and have fun, I think. And of course, we don't know where this comes from, but this looks a little too accurate to be just somebody making fun or memeing. This looks like it's
from Hustlin', so it's pretty meme. Pretty meme. He's with Adversity right now.
Oh, Adversity. Oh, terrible. But are these some of the actual engagements, or is this completely made up? Not engagements, but the rules of engagement.
A lot of this does not look familiar. I mean, the first 3 points, the no cloaky camping, no hitting structures, and no sov-wanding, I think is quite literally verbatim ripped from the agreement. But everything else is a bit questionable. Like the no
Okay.
killing crabs and supers is like, I mean, come on. That's uh, I can go to Zkill, search back like 2 pages and probably find a
Because they're
carrier
definitely
virus
killing that.
dying. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. They're definitely. All right. This is a troll. But actually, some of it's not. The cloaky camping, are they allowed to cloaky camp?
So no, and that's a big point. Actually, one
Yeah.
of the few things you can do to get a lot of the test members angry at you is to cloaky camp, and at risk of being lynch mobbed for even bringing this up. I will say that a great number of people are still very mad at Marshy, and there's a huge negative sentiment towards Bomber's Bar, which I actually learned from your show just a week or two ago is maybe not correct. But we sort of learned to hate him over a very long time, of where his character is aptly named Don Trolleone would be sitting in like the majority of systems in Esoteria. And there's a psychological warfare that you brought up. You're like, is that sleeper agent gonna awake while I've got my super carrier out? Should I be careful by taking my 7 works out? And so that was like months on end, relentless, and a lot of people had to adapt or die. So I would say that that's one of the major points where if there's something huge about it, that line members would definitely be like, oh yes, this is very important, this is critical. It would be the no cloaky camping, because we've seen what it does to the people in the East right now, and we would not want that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not the ones insisting on that. That comes from the Imperium side, because back when we moved into Esoteria and basically won the war against Steinwagen, then as they moved into paired bases, then we moved like 200 cloaky campers across that regional gate, and it was shortly after that the no cloaky camping agreements were drafted.
So this is Saris Victoria. Are you? Where are you from?
I'm from Test.
Test. Okay.
Prominent member, might I add.
Yeah. I know. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, since this is the first time we're talking to you?
Well, I've been in Test for like 2 or 3 years now, and I mostly do bombing thing.
Mm. So you're part of the FCs, I suppose?
Yeah, like the subset of FCs who help organize things like cloaky camping and bombing fleet and that stuff.
Oh, okay, good. It's nice to meet you. And Caleb's here. How you doing, Caleb?
Hey guys.
Okay, so again, we want to reiterate that reading that list, that was a troll. Some of it has some truth. I mean, trolls are always based on some truth. It's kind of ironic. But what they're basically saying here is that there's the conclusion is that Goon Swarm and Test are red versus blue, meaning you're just going to fight for fun. But the overall thrust of what this meme is about is that Test and Goons are basically play fighting. They're not contesting anything, and they're not really hurting each other's ability to grow stronger. And I think
Yeah,
that
the
is...
gist of it is true.
Yeah, that seems true to me. And it seems logical as well, since they're allies at the moment, and there's a mutual defense pact, basically. That all makes sense. All right, another area that we wanted to hit. I'm going to throw this out there because I thought that was kind of funny. I was looking at, where is it here? Is it not here? I guess I'll bring it up. Here it is. And this was actually August 8th, so it was a long time ago. But every time that somebody posts on it, it comes back up to the top. So this is the first time that I actually read it. And it's basically how code self-destructed or had the Civil War or whatever. And basically comes out and says something I thought was pretty interesting. And this is like a debate that goes on forever in EVE Online. But in the past 2 years... No, that's not it. Okay, so this is probably a troll post too, because he's apologizing for being a bully, which doesn't sound right. But he does say something along the lines of the people who basically do a lot of high sec ganking, just basically taking out players in high sec where they expect to be safe, and they are all destroyed unexpectedly by these guys that suicide themselves to destroy them. Those people have, like, I don't know, psychopathic real life tendencies. Because
that story again.
Yes, that story. It's been played out through EVE Online forever. A lot of people say, oh, EVE's a great game. You can actually do really cruel things to people and make them cry, but it's all for fun. That's and I like picking up on that thread because I tend to think, no, this is just what you're like without constraints. So that's why.
It's like that whenever the Purge movie came out, everyone's like, "Whoa!" You had randoms out there saying, "Well, this is a great idea." It's people clinging to that they can do things that aren't the norm, expressing it.
Yeah. All right. Well, no takers on that one. So we've run into 2 memes today. I don't know if that's a meme, by the way, but probably. And he's done. Code has basically been around for a while. Okay, the last thing we need to look at is, we didn't do this last time because we're actually just back on the air. And that is, this is the patch notes for November 2019. We didn't go over these, but there's some significant stuff here. Shall we read it? Or do you guys have anything else before we go on to this? This is going to take a few minutes.
No, I'm good.
All right, let me just check a message because people are writing me in public. Oh, yes. So this is, thank God. I'm going to pin this because this is amazing. There is a presentation by Elise Randolph, who's part of Talking In Stations, that he did at eVegas that is so good that I recommend it to everybody that plays EVE Online that is interested in ships, because he basically does a history of EVE's most popular ships and doctrines. And he is just phenomenal at being able to break down history in EVE in a way that I can't even do, like at all. I look at the stories and the agony and the ecstasy, and he looks at the actual mechanics of what's going on under the surface, why things are popular. And I told him as soon as he finished this, it was so impressive. I thought the speech that I did at eVegas, that had a lot of great appeal. It actually that year got more and still has more views than the keynote. The speech that I made was called The Continuum of War, and it was the last 5 years of warfare. And I talk about how war mutates over time, and that basically how everything's connected. But what he does here is what I was trying to do, and that is show the mutation not only sociologically, but mechanically. As the game changes, how do people change their preferred ships, and what kind of puzzles are solved by the players? And I think that is it's a fantastic lecture that he did. It was a 2-hour one, but because it's eVegas, oops, let me shut that down. Because it's eVegas, he only had 1 hour to present it, which is actually a generous amount of time at Vegas. Usually things are like 20 minutes. But he still didn't get through all of it. So we want to record the whole 2 hours and then definitely put that out to people. Oh, why isn't that coming up? Let me put that out for you just so we can look at it. And then we'll go to patch notes. But this is, yeah, something that you've got to see.
Ships or Eve.
And we'll see if I can get to a good spot. He's presenting to a rather small room, so he's kind of just talking to people, but he does a great job of going through, and he has a lot of good material in it. I think it's definitely something we should record and put out. A full 2 hours of that would be great. So that's now out, and you can find that at CCP's eVegas 2019 group of presentations.
Yeah, whenever he talks about something, it's he knows in depth a lot of the things. Like I have a post from Reddit he did on rapid light missiles, or light missiles from I think 4 years ago now, that I have bookmarks still that I go back and read, that gives you so much insight on some of the things when I was still learning, that it was just like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. One of the few guys, the reason I love having him around is one of the few guys that when he starts talking about anything, I actually learn some things. So it's like, and it's hard because I've been watching this for a long time, and recording things and writing articles about it and just kind of being in it. But the kind of stuff that he surfaces is only few people in the game can know the stuff that he knows, because he was behind the scenes watching all the deals being made, or actually probably being the guy making a lot of the deals. And so for him to talk about a thing, you can actually trust that he's telling you what the actual motivations were, what the actual repercussions were, because he was at the table making those things happen. And the rest of us were kind of watching what they were doing and recording and trying to figure out why they would do certain things. So when Elise Randolph talks, I learned something. And I think everybody can learn from Elise. That said, check out that presentation. We'll come back to it, maybe do a full show and interview with him about it. Now let's go to patch notes, November 2019. Oh, we're out of time. No, actually, we'll go on. The big notes here are for patch notes 2019. So those seem to have dropped on the 12th, which is usually when CCP drops an expansion or some kind of an update. It's usually like the second Tuesday of the month, I've noticed. And so the big stuff here is the micro jump field generator reworked to allow a maximum of 25 capsuleers. And this is a very big deal for bombing fleets and doctrines that required, bushing, they call it. That's why this whole thing is called beat around the bush. Bushing is when a command destroyer is near you, it jumps you, it blinks you 100 kilometers away, so you can jump around a field of engagement or a grid of engagement, and you're hard to catch. It's not impossible, but it's just harder. And so when you combine that ability with something like battleship Ravens that have long-range missiles, that is a pretty potent combination, because you're jumping around these battleships. They can shoot long-range missiles that don't miss. So they can take down structures because they are hard to catch, but they also can do a lot of damage to large structures because missiles do damage to larger things. You also have a problem with bombers because bombers can do the same things with torpedoes. Torpedoes, again, do a heck of a lot of splash damage, especially to structures and to larger ships. And they're smaller and they can travel through wormholes. So you combine the ability to jump around the grid with the ability to apply a lot of damage, and then you mix that combination, that's called the Stuka fleet. You mix that combination with wormholes that allow you to travel all over the galaxy. Because these are small ships, many of them can go through without collapsing the hull because they're mass collapsed. So if you don't use up a lot of mass when you travel through it, you can get a lot of ships through it. So those bombers can travel all over the galaxy, deliver an immense amount of payload on ships, and because they get to blink around with the command destroyers, they're very hard to catch. And so this change was made to kind of nerf that behavior by saying 25 random ships around you will jump with that command destroyer. And that breaks up that ability to grab a whole fleet and move it with you. Now you're only taking 25 at a time. So it really limits that. So Stuka fleet is really nerfed with this thing. Anyone have any comments on that?
I think there's one other aspect of it that is worth mentioning, that when you're FCing, right, it's a constant game of rock, paper, scissors, maybe a little more intricate than that. But what the small size of the bombers with bushing allowed is for, let's say, war going on the opposite side of where we're at, right? We can get in Goku or Stuka and go through a couple of wormholes that we've got probed out, and we can take 250 guys with us to go and support somebody or kill somebody or do whatever we'd like to do. And realistically, if you wanted to move equivalent firepower of that many people, it would take exponentially longer. And so the change to bushing it doesn't just affect the whaling community. It also affects in terms of power that can be put on grid from friends who maybe don't live geographically close to each other.
Right. So Goku and Stuka, to give you an explanation, those are two fleet doctrine names for bombers. Usually bombers are cloaked up and they have these bombs that they release that travel 30 kilometers and then explode in a massive radius and do a ton of damage. So you can wipe battleships out pretty easily if you have a few bombers. But the Goku and the Stuka fleet don't use bombs. What they use instead are torpedoes, and they're used to apply damage over time with these torpedoes who have giant splash damage. Just 1 second. I had to just block somebody for being abusive there. Let me see if I can. I don't know what I'm doing, so I just hit ban. Sorry, dude. I didn't want to ban you completely, but
The hammer.
yeah, don't want to deal with you. Just somebody making some noise.
I think.
I'll finish this thought and then we can go on. So the Stuka fleet is a evolution of the Goku fleet. Goku fleet was around a long time ago with Pro God Legend, and that was basically bombers that were used that used torpedoes, but you had enough of them that you could take out objects, alpha them basically. So that was what the Goku was. You combine the Goku with the blinking ability, the moving ability, and that becomes the Stuka fleet. Okay, so yes, just explaining some terms there. So that's a big one, and that is the micro jump field generator, and we'll see how people adapt to that. It'll be very interesting. Also, you have bosonic field generator signature resolution increase from 2000 to 10,000. The signature resolution increase. Now, boson, by the way, the bosonic field generator is a doomsday from a Titan. That's the bosonic that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's this change mean? Is it slower to lock?
Oh,
It means
that's big.
it deals less damage to subcaps.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So this is the. Okay, somebody explain that concept so that I don't get it wrong.
I mean, so in EVE, explosions deal damage to ships based on how big the ship is compared to the size of the explosion. And the bosonic field generator uses that mechanic, and 2000, the old number, is about the size of a battleship using its micro warp drive, while the new size is about the size of a dreadnought. That means that for most ships, it will now deal 5 times less damage.
Wow. That is a massive nerf to a Titan's ability to destroy a fleet with a given blast.
Well, a single Titan at least. I mean, you got some groups who can put 5 to 10 on a gate, so it still can be used in that way, just not as a singular duel. And
It also, I believe, now I don't know for sure, but I believe that this helps CCP, right? Because maybe, and let me explain what I mean by that. They might have seen that Titans using bosons were generating a lot of ISK. And so it might play a factor in their determination of whether or not they'd like to reduce that faucet, because a boson can be used on a specific NPC site to clear a bunch of the waves, essentially killing a bunch of NPCs and getting that liquid ISK, which can potentially be an issue depending on how difficult that activity is. We've seen a couple of Titans get banned for botting in the last year. It may be that they decided, oh well, we still like the functionality of the boson. We want it to not be as good as it is against subcapital targets, but against bosoning a dread bomb, let's say that's on a Titan at 0, that's still viable. Or using like the other gentleman said, how you can have like just 5 more if you really want to make sure that somebody dies while warping to a gate. You can still do that, but a single player with a single Titan can't go and find a quiet system back somebody somewhere and just kill as many NPCs as he can before he needs to go and sleep again or whatever.
Interesting. So that is meant to kind of curb Titan ratting, then, I suppose.
Correct. That is my belief, at least. Yes.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. If you look at the change in isolation, it looks like, well, this helps groups that have 5 or more Titans because they can make up for that. But I get the gate camp thing, Orion, that you were talking about. If you actually, I think when blackout hit, there was no way to know who was coming into your space unless you perched on the gate and watched it to see who was coming and going. So when a fleet jumped in, you would see a local spike. You would know a lot of people are coming into your system through one of the gates. So what happened right after blackout was Horde, at least, would put Titans on their bridges into their main system. So when a big fleet came in to wreak havoc, there was a Titan sitting there that would just blast them. And that worked for about a day. And then the wormholes all opened up and made that a useless thing. But it seems to me that this is directly aimed at single players that use Titans to wipe out NPCs to make a ton of money very quickly. Because that'll now become more difficult. If not impossible, right? I don't know if it's impossible, but you would...
Sorry, I was just going to say that Ron has a wonderful clip on his Twitch where he tries the same tactic that has worked up until this point, pre-nerf, where he does the first wave and then he goes to Boson the second one, which is how you would do it. And it doesn't even, it barely kills that one. And I don't think it clears the frigates. And so it essentially just completely nullifies, from a single Titan perspective, the ability to do that site. Now, as we both know, players are creative. Maybe there's something else that it now can be used for, but there won't be that kind of ISK generation at that site in that way again, I believe.
Yeah. It sounds like that's a pretty strong nerf for that kind of money-making activity. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so those were actually the two big changes that were coming in. So,
well, the Drami change is a big one too. The web amount, those were used against Stuka fleets as well, and also help apply to smaller ships attacking capitals. Reducing the web amount does impact things.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like your little one has a cold.
Yeah, she got diagnosed with strep 2 days ago.
Oh no. That I have PTSD probably from 3 eras in my life, and one of them is when my young child would get a cold, because you can't do anything about it. You just have to wait it out, and you're just sitting there watching them be miserable. It's horrible. But you play with them; they don't notice a difference. It's much worse on parents than it is kids.
It's one reason why I've been partly so quiet. She's been wanting to go out and grab some food. So,
oh yeah, you should definitely hang out. With her, of course. Okay, so some more changes here. Drami 1 and stand-up Drami web amount reduced 10%, was 15. Same with Drami 2. Here's another big one. Ensiblex jump gates and Tenebrex Sinojammer must be now anchored at least 500k from an upwell structure. And this was a big one that was debated right afterwards. Anyone want to tackle that, or should I go for it?
I can just say, from a logistics point of view, moving all those gates has been so very fun. And then on top of that, the PvP side of that, what this means is that you can no longer defend what you could consider the veins of your empire with Keepstars, right, or Fortizar class citadels. And so what this means is you could feasibly see in perhaps the next big war that enemies choose to go for each other's jump bridges just so that they can attempt to cripple the supply lines and reinforcement routes, because trying to get a Titan to bridge every single time to a Sino can be difficult in terms of reinforcing your fleet when all you have to do is say, everyone, okay, undock, warp to the jump bridge on gate and go, right? But if that's not an available option, we will see potentially more warfare based around jump gates and engagements around jump gates.
Yeah, because now you got to be out in a ship to defend that structure, that gate or Sinojammer. You got to be out in a ship to defend it. You can't do it from the structure.
Yep, I think you'll see some more small gang with that too. You'll have 1, 2, 3 guys sitting on a jump gate, grabbing people coming through, trying to generate a bit of content that way. So all in all, I think it's a good thing, personally at least.
Yeah. I kind of like that because it feels like it used to be that you could just, who knows, harpoon the whale from the boat. But now if you want to defeat that whale, you got to get in the water with it. That seems a little scarier, but we'll see. Okay, another big deal, and this will prove out to be maybe the biggest thing that's happened in a while to the game in general, is the localization effort is complete for the Korean language, which means that EVE Online can be played in Korean. So you can see typing and reading can be done in your own language if you're Korean. Why is that a big deal? First of all, Korean video game players are, there's a lot of them, and they like their games. They spend a lot of money on their games, just like Chinese players do. And I think also probably, but the reason it's important for EVE Online is that time zone is very quiet. So if you can get a lot of people that are organized and ready to play at that hour, there's a real advantage to those players. I don't know what's going to happen with them if they're going to be starting their own groups and create their own identity, or if they will be co-opted into existing groups as a time zone corporation that will help the existing groups manage defenses in those times. And the reason this is a big deal as well is because of time zone tanking. Do you guys want to explain time zone tanking so it's not just my voice?
Essentially, time zone tanking is the practice of moving all relevant timers in terms of sovereignty and potentially structures to a time that your enemy can't form for. And so you try and level an uneven playing field by putting you both in a time zone that you both can't really go to with your full strength. And what you're talking about with the Korean player influx offers a sort of interesting answer to a difficult question, which would be if we see more Korean players, sort of like when we started seeing a lot more Chinese players, will we see the practice continue? Because if you have a strong Korean or Chinese core inside of your alliance or your coalition, and your enemies put all their timers into let's say the off time zone, which happens to be like right before downtime, well, all the Korean and Chinese players go, oh great, cool, a timer I can go to, and now you've got like 200 angry people in your staging system, and you got to deal with that. So there's potentially a downside to the usage of that mechanic and that theology.
It's interesting that players were supposed to use prime time, they called it, for when your guys are on. So if you're from the US, you might have it in, a time zone that is comfortable for most of your players to be on. That's when you would be the strongest to defend your structures. And if you were from EU, let's say the UK, then you would have it at a different time for the strongest moment when your guys were on. Well, players did exactly the opposite. Instead of putting prime time when they were strongest, they put prime time when nobody was able to fight because nobody was playing the game at the wee hours of the night for them, which is exactly when Australian time zone is, Chinese time zone, and Korean time zone. That's where they would put the timers to hide them from everybody else. But if you put them there now, as you were saying, somebody might actually show up. And what's worse is, your guys aren't going to show up because your guys are US time zone or you guys are UK time zone. So you're at a disadvantage, and anybody who can bring troops at that hour, well, they're at an advantage. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that shakes up the game. Again, will they bolster existing powers? Will they be co-opted into existing powers? Or will they become power blocks of their own? This is a big question. It's been the question with the Chinese players. It's now the question with the Korean players. Yeah, Delakar, can you speak a little closer to the mic? I turned you up, but actually, I turned you up, so maybe the people are hearing you okay. By the way, great
Sure.
information, man. Really like your stuff. Okay, miscellaneous. Minimum increment for placing bounties on individuals. It's probably a small change. Just you have to pay at least 1 million to put a bounty on someone. So new players, I guess, aren't putting bounties on heads, so it doesn't make a big difference. Skills required for Tech 1 light cannon drones. That's probably not a big deal that I know of. I think we hit the stuff that was pretty big, at least as far as PvP players in nullsec. Those are the ones that are going to hit them the most. We'll come back to this and look to see if there's anything in the new player experience. They're still calling it new player experience, even though it's really not new player experience. I think it's polishing the beginning of the game is a better way to look at it. The first 60 minutes, the first 90 minutes, the first day. They're fixing things that didn't make sense or people were getting hung up on. A new player experience is more, I guess it's a big umbrella for all this stuff, but essentially it's more of the first few minutes of the storyline and what you do when you get in there. That's what that's supposedly new player experience was supposed to be about when it was introduced, getting people involved in the storyline. Why am I still getting beeps and boops? Okay, there. All right, well, I think that's it for today. Again, I wanted to go 15 minutes and we went an hour and 20. So we'll have to get better at shortening these shows up. But if you guys like them, we like them too. We like talking about EVE Online. We like comparing notes. We like meeting new people. And we're going to be here weekdays at, I guess this hour is 1600 is it 1600 UTC? Yeah. 8 a.m. Pacific. One more thing that I thought was interesting, this will be the last thing, is censoring script. Somebody was like, they named their station a really bad thing and they came back and the name had been changed. Now, who knows if it's a script, but CCP, I think, will rename stuff that is beyond the pale. But it would be nice if they did automate that so that certain words just got knocked out, because there's really no reason to be, I don't know, playing psychological warfare with people, chasing them out of the game because you put stuff into the game that's so atrocious. I don't know. Goes back and forth, right? People are attracted to the game because you can be so cruel and evil and you can make people really uncomfortable. And then you just think about the internet and is that the place I want to go to spend my time? Is that the place I want to belong to? On the one hand, it's free and it's a world that allows you to do so many things. On the other hand, it's full of trash. As you can see that through the most open societies are kind of the most ugly. Not in real life, but if you look at Reddit, it's an open, right? You can say a lot of things on there. They have certain rules, but there's a lot of noise to info ratio problems. And so, I don't know. All right, guys, I think we're done. Oh, Ashtroth, he just came in at the last second.
Hello, hello.
What's been going on with you?
Just preparing for the expansion, man. Next week.
Next week, tell us about that.
So next week we are getting Chapter 2. With Invasions Chapter 2, we are going to be seeing the new Triglavian Dread, the Zenitra, as well as a new event known as the Stellar Observatory, in which we will be siding either with the Empires or the Triglavian forces to secure the area around the sun and various invasion sites. One of the things it does look like is that the blueprints for the Zenitra does come from siding with the Triglavians. And as of right now, we're not 100% sure what we get for siding with the Empires or what kind of long-term consequences will come from any given decision one way or another. Either way, I'm really excited. And it also falls right in line with Rapid Fire, which should be releasing at about the same time, which should be the changes to autocannons and various Mimitar ships, including the Munin.
Wild. So this happens next week.
Yeah, the 26th. that was what was originally. That's what it was announced. And with Rapid Fire, CCP Rise has said that it's every 2 weeks. The last one was, it'd be right online. I think it was the 14th or whatever. So, and that was the beating around the bush. So, Team Talos is still at work.
Are they on different schedules? The Team Talos putting out changes to the game every 2 weeks, and then what you could say is a different track, the expansion track. Or are they trying to time everything to work with one another?
Well, there's an expansion, or not expansion. There's generally a patch every month or so. So it seems as if they're trying to make the Team Talos updates align with major patches. So like Beat Around the Bush was part of the November patch. Howling Interceptors was part of the Halloween event. So, I mean, obviously we don't have enough data points to go on, but as far as like being in different tracks, absolutely. It seems as if Team Talos is completely independent of the rest of the normal EVE Online effort, and they're just kind of roaming around and picking off whatever they can fix to make sure things are shook up and remain interesting for the quote-unquote core of EVE.
Yeah. Wild. Okay, I want to say thanks everybody. Thanks Ash for giving us that last interesting. We buried the headline again. We buried the lead.
That's like the theme of chapter 2.
Yeah, it's like that. Oh yeah, and then there's this, but it's actually huge. That you fight for Triglavians. It's the first time you could fight for a different group. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, Concord's the real enemy.
Yeah. Well, okay. So got to get going. We're gonna go ahead and publish this one. We'll be back tomorrow to do a bit more of this. Let me just actually, if you stick around, we're gonna raid Ron, USMC. We talked about him earlier, and he is also part of Talking In Stations. So, okay, thanks very much, Caleb, Ash, Delacar. It's nice to meet you, man. Great info. Dazzling Spod was here, and also Orion, who he was starting with us earlier today. But thank you guys for coming on, and thanks, chat, for being around and giving us some information. And we will see you tomorrow.